So let's say you have a WooCommerce issue on the checkout. For example, it doesn't process orders. Of course, you've done already some research by looking at the change logs, at the WooCommerce system status, at the hosting error logs and access logs as we've seen in the previous versions, and maybe you checked on Google and GitHub as well in case this error is happening to other people. So at this stage you might or might not have an idea of which plugin or theme or function is actually causing your problems. Before we go ahead with troubleshooting, however, it is important that you switch onto a staging environment. Now, if you can't clone your website with one click from your hosting control panel, I really recommend you switch provider. This is such a too important feature to have for managing a WordPress site. So unless your website is not live yet and you're able to troubleshoot on the production environment, then you really need to do this work on a staging copy of your website. So we're looking at a copy of my website. I said the problem was related to the checkout. And let's say that while investigating, I came up with an hypothesis, which is that the Breeze plugin, which is my cache plugin, is maybe causing the issue. So the first step of troubleshooting is deactivating or disabling the plugin or theme that you think is responsible for causing the issue. So I just I'm on staging, so I can simply deactivate the plugin. Now I go back to the page, so to the front end section where I was getting the error. I refresh the page with F5 because it's a checkout problem. I place a test order. I check if it is working. If it is not, then my hypothesis was wrong. Okay, and that happens very often. So we move on to step number 2. Step number 2 is what everyone always tells you to do. So you just bulk select all plugins except WooCommerce, and you go and say bulk action disable or deactivate. By doing so, basically we're trying to say, fine, maybe there is a problem in another plugin. If I now go to the checkout, refresh the page, place a test order because I want to see if it works or not, and it works, then it means that one of the plugins that I deactivated is the guilty one. Okay, so how do I find it now that I know that the checkout process is working? Very simple. I just pick the first one, I activate it, I try the checkout again, and if the checkout is still working, that it means that this is not the broken plugin. I activate the second, I test the checkout again. If it's working, then this is not the guilty plugin. And I keep going and going and going one by one plugin by one, until I find the one, let's say WooCommerce Stripe Gateway, that once activated and once I reprocess the checkout is causing the issue. So by doing so, by bulk disabling all plugins and re-enabling one by one and testing, of course, the website, you might have found the problem. If that's the case, so if you found out that it is a plugin, in fact, well, what you can do is 2 things. First of all, is checking if an upgrade, like in this case, is required. Maybe that's because your problem is happening. If there is no update, you maybe require a downgrade. We will see that in the next lessons. So maybe you need to restore a previous plugin version. If that's not the case, maybe it's a problem with the plugin itself. So you have to contact the developer and report a bug. Now, if the developer is not available to fix the bug, then it's time to replace the plugin. Now, the thing is, not always disabling all plugins send the error away. Okay, so if it's not a plugin, well, then of course it could be a theme problem. Fine. So the second step of the standard WordPress troubleshooting is switching themes. In case you're using a child theme, the very first operation that you should do is switching to the parent theme. So I'm going to do that right now, and I will also explain why I am doing that. Switching to the parent theme is basically telling the system, let's take a look if the error is inside my child theme. So I just go to the checkout again where the problem was. I refresh the page with F5, I place a test order and see if the error has gone away. By doing so, I'm basically saying, fine, the parent theme is totally fine. The problem is in the child theme. Now, if that's the case, you need to go and troubleshoot and debug your child theme code. So it doesn't matter whether you've placed custom CSS or custom PHP or custom JavaScript, the error is there. So contact your developer or debug yourself. If the error doesn't go away by switching to the parent theme, then the error may be inside the parent theme itself. How do you prove that? You simply switch to another default WordPress theme, 2020, 2021, 2016, whatever you want. You just activate. You then go back to your issue, refresh, place a new test order in this case, see if the process works. If it does, then the error was with your storefront parent theme. What to do in this case? As usual, see if there is an update available, see if you need to downgrade. If that's not the case, contact the storefront theme developers, report the bug and tell them to fix it ASAP. So these are the two places where you would find errors simply by switching or disabling all the plugins and themes, and you will find where the problem is. It might happen that the problem is not with a plugin and the problem is not with a theme. And what I mean by that is that when you activate 2020, for example, the problem is still there. But the good news now is that if the problem isn't solved by switching plugins off and by switching a theme, then it can only be with the hosting. It could be the way you've set up the hosting, could be the cache, it could be some wrong redirects, it could be how the SSL cert is set up, could be the HT access file, it could be absolutely anything. So at that stage, because it's not a plugin and because it's not a theme, then you just need to live chat with your hosting, report the bug, and for now, what you could try out is maybe disabling the cache on the server side and see if that fixes it. So this is basically troubleshooting 101. Just remember, come up with an hypothesis, disable that plugin/theme first. If that doesn't fix it, go ahead and disable all plugin symbol, can then re-enable one plugin one by one. If that doesn't fix it, switch the theme section and move to a default theme. If that doesn't help, then the error is with the hosting, so contact your hosting.